Hey guys, welcome back to another episode that we're uploading to the channel. So, while I know you see the Final Fantasy VII background for the screen that is recording, I'm actually going to be doing a new type of video. This is kind of being treated more as like a podcast type deal than really a gameplay video or gameplay in general. We started putting together a D&D campaign that we could air on YouTube. I'm going to have to remember the players that this is supposed to be YouTube friendly, because I know that some of them are going to say or try to pull things that probably wouldn't be agreeable, and I'm going to have to remind them until they get it into their heads that this isn't our typical campaigns that we do that aren't being uploaded somewhere where they can be viewed. Now, this video is going to exclude character introductions, except for who I am, and I'll reiterate in our first campaign who I will be, seeing as I don't have everybody available and I'm not going to do introductions for them. I'd rather you get to hear their voices and them kind of bring their character to life, since they'll be playing that particular character. So, the world that this campaign takes place in is a world known as the Realm of Twilight, being that we're Twilight Nexus. I thought it more than fitting. Now, this land has had some issues with war in the past, but as of recent events and things in the world, it's kind of simmered down and it's not as bad with the war. There are a few nations that are currently the main powers of the world. There is the Kingdom of Elysium, which is a center of trade. They are home to many skilled craftsmen of all kinds, but they are known to be kind of one of the crime capitals of the continent. And for some reason, their leader knows about this crime, but allows it to happen as long as he also notifies the guards and tells them, hey, if you do see a crime going on, you do have all rights and all power to stop it, but you don't necessarily have to stop it if you don't want to, which has left this town kind of questioning what their leader is doing and what's going through his head. And Sergey knows that I've not brought this up until now. And the only reason is because I personally, as DM, will let you guys create your nations, but if I see fit, I will put a slight twist on it. Next is, and I actually had the players help me create certain things for this D&D, because I have to have my players involved in the creation of the world so that it can be to their liking. Elysium was created by our editor, Ninja, and he's been busy with some personal health stuff, so that's why he's not really edited anything just of yet, and he's been really hard to get in touch with because of these matters. Next is the Necropolis. It's a nation that, after many years of hardship and prejudice, many of the people have made a name for themselves because they try to seek out and be friendly and try to create allies because they've dealt with all these prejudice throughout the years. Now, mind you, this place looks like a barren wasteland. It's like an old kingdom that's in ruins, but there's a underground city that is like flourishing. Now, this town is run by undead for the most part. It's kind of like a undead safe haven. They also have a very unique justice system, which allows for, upon your death, if you allow it, you can be brought back from the dead as an undead to work off and repent through your afterlife to make up for the crimes that you committed during your living life. Then there is the beautiful, wonderful, and yes, everybody, you'll tend to see that I favor certain players because they actually are more skilled at playing than others, and I kind of have to baby the majority of the other group, while some of them I can let off of their leash and actually let them do stuff that I can trust them to not screw up my worlds. Shifty eyes in the direction of Sergey.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you to say, okay, you're off your leash, destroy the planet. I want to see what happens. I'll go full villain in a second if you give me the ability to.
One of these campaigns, I'll let you do it. In fact, do you know how many times I've said, and sorry that we're going off on a tangent here, but there's been many times because I play my campaigns myself, but I try to have minimal interaction that affect the story. I'm there to be normally and typically a comedic relief character or a character that can throw a wrench in my players' plans, like a trickster. So I try to avoid having to actually be combat-wise. I try to avoid any combat means. So that it's not like well, you just stepped in and saved somebody's life type situation, and then people think I'm favoring one person or the other. Now, Sergey created Serne no Kuni, which is translated into the Land of Spirits. I've used a lot of different languages and translators to create character names and to create these areas. And what Sergey created, the Land of Spirits, we'll just say for people to make it easier, or we'll just call it Seirei. It's a melting pot of different races. There's sections of the town that are broken up into different clans. Imagine like a very feudal Japan-based kind of like appearance, and it's home to like a lot of people that believe in like spiritualism and using spirit magics over traditional religious magics. They don't get along with the church, which thankfully there's really no churches. I mean, there's cults, and that's like the closest thing that will get to churches. But the church technically doesn't really exist here because a majority of the gods don't tend to ask for worship through religious means of like churches in this realm, which we'll get to the gods after I kind of describe the leaders, which will be next after I've described the nations. Now, the next place, which is the nation that I created for our campaign, is a nation known as Norwich. Norwich is this kind of rundown ghetto. It used to be like this glorious, prosperous town, but after years of like neglect and its leaders just not going out of their way to try to keep the town being prosperous and bringing in new trades, it's become very run down. It is a town that was once a great trade capital, but as of late it's grown overrun with crime. It says the ruler, by rumor from mouth to mouth, was heard to have made some type of deal with a devil or a demon of some sort, and that there's no way that could be true. It's only a rumor, right? The people are suffering, buildings are closed and boarded up, prostitutes walk the streets free with no guards stopping them, or if there are guards walking the streets, they're more than likely partaking of their services. There's slavers that roam this town free. Nobody questions what they're doing. And heck, even some people see it as they'd rather be a slave and have a roof over their head than be on the streets and in the gutters. There's more poor than there are rich. And the people constantly wonder, could they ever return the city to its former glory, or would they be better off maybe trying to leave the city and finding a new start somewhere else? Then there's Marbith and I'm gonna butcher this because I use Scottish Gaelic for the translation. There's Marbeth Tullity, which is a town that was once a ghost town. As of late, people have been noticing that life, and I'm using life with quotes, has found its way back to this town, though anyone who tends to wander into this town or even go near it goes missing.
Oh no.
And then there's the great hidden kingdom of Toolbox. And I personally made this just to mess with the players because we were in a rush and in a crunch to finish One Nation for proper playdate for the day that we had set aside to release the campaign. That being that the release of the campaign will be tomorrow. And the irony of this is that Toolbox is just a home to a whole bunch of sentient, super smart goblins that hate the written word. Like, they will literally pee or eat books if you show them a book, or they'll rip it up and throw it at you because they don't believe in the written word. They think that the written word is literally like the word of the devil, or like the word of the great evil, as they call it. So, we then move on to the leaders of these lands. And leading Seirei is the beautiful Kitsune Yuki. She's a very strong-willed woman who cares for her people. She can be a fierce opponent in a fight if you get on her bad side, but if you're able to earn her trust, she can be one of the most amazing allies you've ever had. And she completely detests slavery unless it's for a really good cause. Or, like, you know, if it's been like a contractual slavery, like somebody owed somebody a life debt and they gave themselves over as a slave willingly and they agreed to it. And that there's been no ill-mannered treatment towards them in their time as a slave. Like, you know, they're still being treated like a normal human. It's just, hey, you're gonna live with me and you're gonna be my servant until the day you die type deal, or until I release you. Then there is the leader of the necropolis, Vivian. She's a vampiress who, weirdly enough, she's seeking her soulmate. She's a little on the promiscuous side. She'll like to go out on the town, drink from citizens that are of the living variety. And then she's seeking a soulmate for some reason. It's not really known why she wants this soulmate. There are rumors that go around as to why she's seeking a soulmate. And so she even goes far enough as to have spies follow these people around that she'll find and try to determine how they think, how smart they are, if they're actually a good person or not, all because she's seeking this companion. I mean, then again, come on, if you're a vampire, eternity can be awfully boring when you're alone. She has tested many people to see if they could be her companion or her soulmate, if that's the term you like to use, in the past. But honestly, nobody's exceeded her expectations or even come close to them. So sadly, she's been alone for at least, I'd say, within the world-wise, it's been at least 500 years since she's maybe found a probable person that even comes close to what she's looking for. In my personal opinion, even as DM, which I didn't create her, Jack created her since she's the leader of Necropolis. In my personal opinion, just from how they create their NPCs that are their leaders, I kind of come up with a description just based off of the descriptors they give me. In my personal opinion as DM, she's got too high of expectations, which is why she can never find anybody. She's lived for too long and developed these ideas of like grandeur for what she's looking for, and nothing can come close. Then this is an inside well, not an inside joke. This is a joke that any person that smokes the ganja would completely understand. We then have Puff, the magic dragon. We have Puff the dragon, who has lived for thousands of years. With how long he's lived, he's able to take on a human form. Puff grew up in Sayre with his older sister, but Puff didn't want to have to deal with the traditions of his home or be stuck to that culture, so Puff left when he was, you know, of age in their eyes for their race, and went and created Elysium. Now, he's been alive much longer than any current human of his nation. He enjoys a good party, and he loves to drink. Though he comes off as peaceful and calm the majority of the time, if somebody does attack him or completely irritate him, he will snap, and he is known for, like, essentially smiting a person right there on spot, though he is not a god. He knows the leader of the city's underworld for their nation, and they do have a special understanding about how the city needs to be ran. Being a dragon, he knows, hey, there needs to be death, there needs to be life, there needs to be order, there needs to be crime, there needs to be a balance between them. I can't have the perfect city.
Oh.
Which is why he lets the crime happen. Then there is Lord Sans Quer, who is the proud leader of Norwich. Don't honestly know why he's proud. His town's essentially a shithole. He has been trying his hardest for his people to survive, but sadly without any other help from any other nation, because no nation wants to even help them because they're so delved into debt and so near the brink of essentially not even being a nation anymore, where then any nation could come in and take over at that point. Nobody wants to help. Without help from any nation, a lot of his people can die, and that sits on his shoulders very strongly. He's also known for strolling through the town to check on people and to assess what can be done to try to improve the lives of his people. He's naturally a very nice and kind, good guy. Then there is our would-be villain of our campaign, the Necromancer. The Necromancer is the leader of Marbeth Talate, or however, we're just going to call it Marbeth. He is the leader of Marbeth, who he was brought back from the dead by an unseen force. Sadly, this force corrupted and twisted a small portion of his soul. And when he was first brought back, Vivian did come across him and offer him a home at the Necropolis. But he looked at the Necropolis and saw the potential of the undead and looked at her and was like, this is what you turn our people to? Bumbling fools who want to live and work with humanity. We, the undead, are stronger than them. We don't die. If we die, we could just come back again. And so his goal is to essentially turn the whole entire world into a undead world so that everyone else can be like him and that there will never have to be death ever again. In his eyes, he's doing this for the betterment of all people. Then we have only one man known by his title, and if we ever give you guys like a tour somehow, if I can get like a screen recorder and I can give you guys a tour of our Discord server, there is the Goblin King, who I made him look like David Bowie from The Labyrinth. It's to pay homage to David Bowie. I really loved The Labyrinth growing up. Now, he's the leader of the goblins. He's a childhood friend of Yuki's, which Yuki, being a kitsune, has lived for thousands of years. How a goblin has lived for thousands of years is something that I will reveal in the story. He also appears to be human, but he is indeed a goblin. There's no denying that. He also has powers and abilities that are unknown, and he's even been rumored to have the ability to slightly mess with reality itself.
That's awesome.
So, now that we've covered the leaders, we can go ahead and move on to the NPCs of each nation. We'll start with the nation of Toolbox, being that that's the first tab I have free. Within the nation of Toolbox is a wizard by the name of Snip Snap. He's a wizard who actually rivals the abilities and powers of many of the high-ranking wizards of the world. Though everything he's learned from scrolls that have illustrations or picture books, because he will not trust the written word, as the written word is the word of the great evil. Then there's Slick, a goblin rogue who never steals from anyone unless they truly deserve it. He actually works for the goblin government as a repossessor who goes into people's houses when they're not around, or, you know, does rogue thievery but uses it for the government. You could say he was a rogue at one point in time, and he still sees himself as a rogue in his eyes because of goblin mentality, but he's honestly just a government agent doing his job. Then there's Bone Clanker, who is the town's witch doctor, and he's also a shaman. He actually uses voodoo magic, and he's said to be able to actually commune with a god. He's a super friendly guy, and he tries to save anyone and all that he can with his voodoo magics. The god that he worships and that he can commune with will come into play when we get to the gods tab. Then there's Strings, a skilled goblin female bard. She loves to play her music for the people. She's actually so popular that the town has scheduled her 2 shows a day. She plays one show during the morning, which takes place in the town square, and then she plays one show at night at the town's tavern. There's then the Norwich NPCs, which are Dorian. He's a thief and an information broker. He's been based in Norwich the majority of his life. He honestly actually doesn't want to live in Norwich, but he will do what he has to survive. Before the hard times hit the city, he actually worked for Lord Sands as a spy. And till this day, it's said that people are actually hunting him down from the work that he did when he was a spy. So he's constantly on the run. He's kind of shady, but he's not the worst guy in the world. Like, he's not doing this to be a bad guy. But I tell you now, if you're in Norwich and you're looking to figure out a secret or discover some type of gossip, this is your dude to go to. Like, he knows things that people probably shouldn't even know. He could tell you what kind of pie a baker's gonna bake the next day, is how knowledgeable he is. Then there's Noir. This is a man only known by his code name. He's a hired assassin who lives in Norwich. He enjoys chaos and... well, he enjoys the chaos of the city. He also is kind of a battle nut. He loves to fight, get his blade covered in blood. He'll even go as far as to tasting the blood of his enemy, though he's not a vampire. Though his loyalty is up for bid as long as the price is good. It's rumored that at one point in time in his life he was a slave when he was younger, but that, according to the rumors, he not only killed his captors, but then went back to his own home and killed his parents for selling him off to slavers. It's also said, because everything he does blindfolded, it's said that because the reason that he was sold off was because it was rumored that he was cursed, or in some people's eyes blessed as a child with some sort of sight. We then have Madame Silver, who's actually the head of the town brothel, which is one of the few buildings that are still up and running because, you know what they say, a business like that's never going to go under as long as the guards don't get involved. She actually cares for many of the girls as though they're her own daughters. Like, many a man who have gone into this brothel and laid an ill, meaning hand on a girl have disappeared. In other words, yeah, you can figure that out. She kills them if they hurt any of her girls. Then there's Carla. She's a female assassin who actually is Noir's partner. She was raised in Sayre, so she's actually been gifted with very unique fighting styles and spiritual magics that she can use in combat that actually make her a very deadly opponent, because a lot of the Sayre magics aren't really taught to outsiders or anyone from outside that city, so the fact that she learned these things and then left, it makes her very unpredictable and could be a force to be reckoned with if faced with the right opponent or even the wrong opponent. Then we have Marbeth's NPCs, which are definitely the darker NPCs of the campaign. We have Morgan, who is a blood mage. She's also a very skilled warlock. She was taken in by the necromancer as a child. He found her all by herself. Her parents had died to a disease. And if you need to go ahead, go. She was left there as an orphan. He took her in and raised her as his own daughter. And she cares about him so much that she'd be willing to do anything to essentially make him happy. There is then a alchemist who only goes by the name of the Red Death. He loves to create plagues, spread them. He's been doing this for his own pure enjoyment, and the necromancer, noticing that even though he was of the living, though he derived so much enjoyment out of watching the living suffer, the necromancer decided to take him in as an ally, and that the bodies that he killed through his plagues could always be brought back. And the Red Death enjoyed this. The fact that he could now study the effects of what his plague did to the body even after death just made it all the more enjoyable. And then being able to reuse those bodies to help spread his plagues. Then a young girl who, her name is Natasha. Natasha was a girl who, when she was young, her parents were members of a cult who worshipped a god of the void. They got her involved from an early age, that when she became old enough, they even asked her to sacrifice them to this god. Upon doing so, she was gifted a blessing from the god of the void, being able to call parts of him and use powers of his within the material planes. Then a lich who has kind of been guiding the necromancer and teaching him how to use his full powers There's not really much known about the Lich, but there's a lot of people who would think, oh, the Lich is the unseen force that brought back the Necromancer then. Well, that would make some sense. The answer is actually no. The Lich is kind of been put into place by the unseen force to monitor and make sure that the Necromancer grows and is nurtured in the right direction. Because with probably enough talking to, the Necromancer could be convinced to actually become a force of good. Mind you, necromancy and blood magics are frowned upon in some nations. They're not frowned upon in all nations because they can be seen as ways to help. Then there's the Seirei NPCs, which there's a few of them. There's Bakuya Shigami, who is actually the older brother of Lorien Shigami. Lorien is who Sergey will be playing. Jack, I'm doing a D&D explainer video, so just be careful what you say.
Got it.
He's also the head of their family, and he's an expert exorcist. There's then Yoshi Shigami, who is actually the middle brother of the family, with Lorien being the youngest. He also has a White Tiger Shikigami, who is the twin Shikigami to Lorien's, though he does specialize in using a very unique technique to their family of using wire threads to fight. We then have Gembu Karuvian, who is the eldest son of the Karuvian clan. He's a skilled swordsman and also a spy. He tends to use his wings to fly. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this, he's a Tengu, which is why he has the ability to fly.
I still find it weird that you named a Tengu after the black tortoise.
Don't ask questions.
He is known for also being a very skilled tactician. Then there's Kurisu. Kurisu is actually one of the few humans of the land, but just because he's human, he's made a point to prove that he is to not be looked down upon. He is the heir to the Ame clan, which he's actually an outcast because the Ames are very strong on mixing with other races to gain power. They believe by mixing with other particular races and getting half-breeds that they could unlock some type of hidden skills amongst different races by melding multiple races together. Sadly, the human genes took over the majority of his life. Not life, but the majority of his genetics. And he's maybe like a third yokai. What particular yokai that is will be announced in the storyline. He is actually an expert archer, and he almost never misses the target unless he purposely wants to. We then had the older sister of Puff, Aesbon, which is actually Irish. It's translated to White Waterfall. And she's the older sister of Puff. She resides at the top of Waterfall. She rarely actually leaves her manor on top of the waterfall, but she'll actually come down for any festivals or rituals that are taking place within town because that is part of their culture, and she loves to be involved. Then there is Arai Muto-san, and he was a man who lived a normal life till one day his sister was seemingly being attacked by a spirit. Sadly, no exorcists were coming to her calls for help, so he did the only thing that a loving brother could. He offered himself as vessel for the demon, or the spirit, whatever one you wish to go with. And so, curious enough to the being, it willingly decided, it saw a willing host and decided, okay, I'll go ahead and possess it. But what happened next was unexpected. The demon, instead of possessing him, bonded with him. But it never actually took control. In fact, it actually started teaching him things of demon nature and demon knowledge, so that he could use it to slay other demons. By doing that, he's become one of the nation's deadliest exorcists and warriors. Next, we have Shin. He's a yokai of a hidden nature. He's not told many about what he actually is, though he uses many different types of poison mist and different types of spore attacks. Many believe that he might be some type of nature yokai. And one of his favorite moves is to release a pink toxin mist that messes with the person's nervous systems and works as an aphrodisiac. This allows him to confuse and distract his enemies, or if he's feeling in a particular mood, he'll just walk by somebody, release a small bit of spores near their face, just enough to affect them, and use it as a way to play a prank by getting somebody sexually aroused. And then seeing the repercussions of what he did to them. Then we have Aoi Pansa, who is known as the Blue Panther. He's a panther yokai. He's also a he has a twin brother, and he's very skilled with mystic arts of exorcism. Then we have Akka Pansa, who is Aoi's twin. He's just as skilled as his brother with mystic arts, but the difference is that Akka is a seeker of knowledge. He loves to drink. If he isn't studying some great mystery of the world, then he's out and about looking for a good time. Whatever way you wish to take that, that means looking for a woman, having a good drink, finding a party, or some type of celebration to become a part of. Then there is the deadliest and the strongest warrior of the Seirei Nation next to Yuki, who is only known as the Red Fox. It's a exorcist whose power is on a completely another level. He was personally trained by Yuki, and it's said that he's able to actually use a lot of the nation's lost and forgotten techniques. We then have the Elysium NPCs. Now, I did mention that this town does have a lot of crime, but not nearly enough as Norwich. Now, there's Connor. Connor, all his life, wanted to be an adventurer. When he went to go join the Adventurers Guild, they turned him down, all for the fact of his father was a famous serial killer in the town. He thought that it was a load of bullshit, because why should he be judged for his father's crimes? So instead, he took up becoming a mercenary, and was willing to take any job as long as the pay was good. His calling card was to leave a raven's feather and a little bit of nightshade at anywhere that he had a job that he was the one that completed the job of. He has been known to take a few lives, but he does have a code of he will only take the lives of those that willingly deserve it. Then there's Helga, an assassin who works for hire. She does a lot of jobs for the crime families of Elysium's underground. There's not much more to know about her other than those facts. We then have Beatrice, who is a member of Puff's council. She's a skilled swordsman, and many men and women alike have sorely underestimated her just for being a woman. She is very capable as a swordsman, and by people underestimating her, it's actually resulted in a lot of people learning to not provoke her, or they're gonna suffer her wrath. Then there's Frost. Sorry, I said Frost. Gotta remember I'm using different languages. There's Frost, who is actually the town's guard captain. He is a very skilled swordsman and very skilled lawsman, but because Puff allows the city to run the way that it does, he's not below taking a bribe as long as the bribe is good enough. Or he may take the bribe and still go ahead and punish the criminal. Then there's Kate, a pirate, but she's actually got a very good heart. She hates that this is what her life has become, but hey, a girl's got to make a living. She's also known because she likes to bring in illegal goods into the town's black market. There's then Catherine Nezero. She's head of the Nezero crime family. She's very ruthless. She looks down on anyone who judges her based on her sex. And anyone that does, oh, trust me, she'll take them. She'll have her men take them in, torture them, and she's been known to actually have her rivals taken in and torture them just for fun. She has a saying that is, life's just a game, and that she intends to win it. There's then the Necropolis NPCs. There's Bernard, who in his life was a well-known apothecary. He died many years ago, but his knowledge of plants was invaluable that he actually has a living assistant who he tells this knowledge to, has been teaching him. The living assistant is used to taste materials to make sure that the materials are proper. He describes how the material should taste to him. He's also actually really well known for writing a smut series that has been sold out all throughout all the different nations. If you hear this book title, you know who wrote it, and you recognize a kindred soul just because they've got to have that same taste in writing. The series he wrote is actually called Robin Whore and Attack of the Bison. It's a lovely story about a woman who fell in love with a minotaur. He's currently on volume 16 of the books. There's then Captain Jones Bones, a female skeleton town guard. She's actually the one who trained all of the Necropolis guards and knights. There's not really much more known about her other than the fact that she was brought back at the beginning and founding of the Necropolis, and she's been teaching people since. So she's been around for a good 1,000 years. There's then Shatterbones, a orc merchant who died while haggling with another orc. We all know how orc debates get. He was brought back, and sadly the condition of his brought back body throws off a lot, seeing as he's kind of got, his entrails hanging out of him. Parts of his body are only hanging on by threads. He has seen actually a few funeral home and undertaking people a good amount of times to have his body kind of put back together. He's gone so as far, even sometimes they have certain body parts taken from suitable hosts and kind of have Frankenstein stitching together and stuff at times. He's going to be a really interesting character, and I think I'm going to have some fun voicing him, though it might put a little bit of strain on my voice when I do have to use him. Then we have Rosalind, who's a vampiress. Also, she's a seamstress. She's known for being super friendly to her customers and to the townspeople. Because she's seen people come and go, she tries not to form too many attachments. Then we have a little bit of the odd bug of the bunch, who is Onyx. He's a gnome jeweler. He found out that there's a lot of rare caves nearby the Necropolis, so he goes spelunking in these caves looking for gems of rare nature, being that some of these gems are only found in this location. And he tends to try to keep it a secret, but he was actually born with blood magic, and he'll use his blood magic to enchant some of the gems that he has with special traits. There is one last tab. Sadly, this is the last tab I have to finish before the D&D actually is up and running properly. So now that those are all taken care of, we'll go ahead and we'll get to the gods. There's only a handful of gods right now in the game. We'll be adding more as time progresses and new gods come to being known. But we'll start with Baron Samedi. Yes, that Baron Samedi, as in Dr. Facilier. I've got friends on the other side. Jack chose Baron Samedi as a god, and this is the god that Bone Clinker communes with, and many patrons of the necropolis actually worship, being that he's able to commune with the dead. Then we have the Dark King Nea, who is the dark god who resides within the void. He is the unseen force that brought back the necromancer. There are many cults that actually worship him, believing him to be the one true god, and they wish and all seek his dark blessings. The cultists will actually go so far as to paying sacrifices to him because they believe that he's the beginning and the end. We then have the god Dexter, who is a multi-dimensional, multiversal being. If we ever do other campaigns, you'll see me add him in. He's a god of luck, and he's gained the ability to travel through the multiverse. Not many know how he even gained it, because multiversal travel for a god is almost even unheard of for my campaigns. He's one of the few that can actually do so. Dexter does have a son by the name of Dexter Jr. Dexter Jr., unlike his father, is actually a god of knowledge and culture. His father, Dexter, disappeared several thousand years ago, so he's been trying to maintain balance within the world. He was left to look over the land. He is actually royally tied to the culture of Seirai for being a god of knowledge and culture, being that culture is a big thing for them. Him using his special magics himself actually has two ethereal owls that he uses to watch over the mortal realm, much like Odin with Munin and Hugin. We then have Mictir, who is a god of love. He's a shapeshifter. Sometimes he's a man, at times he's a wolf, at times he's in between. He's a very in-tuned Lycan, and in his eyes, he believes that everyone should find their soulmate, and for wolves in this realm, wolves mate for life. So he is seen as a god who can help guide those to their soulmate. We then have Riolton, who is a god of the stars and the cosmos. He's a seer, and he's a powerful star caller himself. It's said that within this realm, all star callers are his children, being that star callers are born from the different stars that have fallen to the earth, or that they're from the major stars in the universe. This covers the majority of the topics needed to be covered within the D&D. When the official D&D starts, I will have the final tab, which is our bar called the Hair on the Ass. I will have a bartender and bar staff all picked out. The bartenders of our D&D campaigns are also very special people. They tend to be multiversal beings, and all taverns are set up with a special magic that whenever you enter them, you automatically enter the Hair of the Ass regardless of where you are. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that watched this informational video for the D&D. I will have the Hair on the Ass all set up and good to go, and then we will do introductions, and everybody can give a little bit of their character and the character's background for the world as of the official day of playing, which will be tomorrow. I hope everybody will enjoy the campaign as much into it, and I just want to say thank you everybody for your time. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, take it easy, everyone.
See you guys.